Hey guys, Wallet here. Today I'm going to be talking about the Mask of Bakris. If you guys don't know what this helmet is, it's the helmet that lets hunters teleport around. If you've been seeing the new dodge, if you've been playing Stasis against Stasis recently, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. But it's the new hunter helmet that came out with Beyond Light, and I'm going to be talking about why I personally don't really like the helmet that much. And honestly, I don't really think it's up there with the top three. The top three being Stompies, Wormhusk, and Dragon's Shadow. And I do think all three of those exotics are actually stronger than the Mask of Bakris. I don't think it's completely useless. I do think it has its strengths sometimes, but for the most part, if you're running one of the other three exotics, I feel like you're going to be getting a lot more benefit out of it. I just want to quickly ask if you guys could leave a like on the video. I would appreciate it, and it would actually make me very happy. So yeah, thank you guys. All right, so moving on. Mask of Bakris. I'm going to talk about the stuff that I do like about it first. The first thing being the actual dodge itself. The dodge on it is pretty damn strong. You do go a lot further compared to the normal dodge on Hunter, which is very, very nice. But that's about it, to be honest. Like that's all I really get is obviously the exotic perk, right? The dodge being really, really good. And you know, it's nothing to complain about. If anything, it's actually quite strong. But obviously a dodge like this has some drawbacks to it, and the drawbacks are pretty severe too. And it's just, it kind of makes you feel I don't want to say at a disadvantage when using it, because obviously it's not too bad, right? But I do feel like it's kind of lackluster in some areas. So the first area being the fact that you actually have a longer dodge cooldown compared to everyone else, regardless of what your mobility tier is at. So I always run a tier 10 mobility. That means 100 mobility. And that means my dodge comes out at 11 seconds every time I use it. 11 seconds is pretty good, right? Like it's really, really good having your dodge up that often, especially on a hunter. If you're someone who's really aggressive like me and who shotguns, you know, flies in, whatever it may be, you want your dodge up as much as you can, right? So you can make those risky plays and stuff. Your dodge is basically your get out of jail for free card, you know, whatever you want to call it. Every time you make a stupid push, you have your dodge button, you get out, easy, bam, you're safe. And that's the issue where, this is where the issue with Mask of Bakris comes in, where you don't always have your dodge up. As a matter of fact, it actually doubles your cooldown. So let's, for example, let's say I have tier 10 mobility. The Mask of Bakris, every time you dodge, it makes, you have a 10-second cooldown, because there's another perk on the helmet that gives you increased arc damage. And you get increased arc damage for 10 seconds every time you dodge. The only downside, as you can see, it says on the left side there, light shift. The only downside is the arc damage doesn't work in PvP. So now you're thinking like, well, hold on. I have to wait 10 seconds for nothing? Right? Like, you're waiting 10 seconds for nothing now. And you think to yourself, there are other exotics, right, that give you benefits without having to wait that long, right? Like, at the very least, if you don't get your dodge back, you would think the arc damage would work in PvP, right? But it doesn't. It doesn't work in PvP. There are exotics out there like Wormhusk, for example. Dude, you get a chunk of health back every time you shade step, and there's no delay or anything. There's no cooldown or anything. It's every 11 seconds. And you have something like Dragon's Shadow. It gives you quick draw. It reloads both of your weapons. And the quick draw it gives you is fucking insane, right? Like, it's not some just, you know, like, oh, like, you know, some budget version of quick draw. If anything, it's better than the normal version of quick draw. And you get it basically the whole time. Assuming you're at 10 mobility, every time you dodge, you're gonna have that quick draw perk for basically the whole 11 seconds. I think it's around like 9 seconds, not actually 11, but regardless, 2 seconds, whatever, right? Like, that's 2 seconds you don't actually have an exotic perk working. But other than that, like, you see what I'm saying? So with Mask of Bakris, every time you end up using your dodge, you don't have anything for that 21 seconds you're going to have to wait, assuming you're on tier 10 mobility. If you don't run tier 10 mobility, you're going to be waiting like, God, 30 seconds for your dodge. Like, fuck that, right? And some of you might be wondering, dude, having your dodge up on Hunter is super important. The fact that it basically doubles it when you run this helmet is it's kind of disappointing, really. The reason I dislike it, I find myself, especially even in this game I'm playing right now, you're not constantly always using your dodge. So it gets to the point where I feel like I'm not even wearing an exotic until I do end up shade stepping, right? Or dodging, whatever you want to call it. The reason why I do believe Stompies are the best exotics in the game is because you're constantly using them, right? And I know you're not constantly using Wormhusk, for example, but when you do use Wormhusk, you keep the 11-second dodge cooldown, right? That's the benefit, and you get your health back too, right? That's a huge benefit. So if you're ever mid gunfight, you're almost always in a gunfight in Destiny, unless you're a coward. But that's besides the point. You're almost always in a gunfight in Destiny. So if you're ever losing a gunfight, for example, you could always use the helmet aggressively and defensively. And I know you could do the same thing with Mask of Bakris, but if you get caught, let's say someone actually and someone actually does manage to track you or whatever, you don't get your health back or anything, right? You're kind of screwed at that point. Where with Wormhusk, for example, you can dodge literally right in front of your enemy, and it's not going to matter too much due to the fact that you're harder to hit while dodging, and you get your health back too, right? With Mask of Bakris, it's hard to hit them after dodging, but once they find you after you dodge, it's kind of it's kind of a free kill after that. I feel like I've been taking a shit on this exotic for the past like 5 minutes in this video. So one thing this exotic is really good at is 1v1 scenarios. Specifically, I think this helmet is very strong in something like Rumble and maybe Trials. I want to say Trials it'll be okay because it's not too fast paced. Something like Quick Play, for example, I don't think it's like the best suited, or anything that's pretty fast paced for that matter. I don't think it's suited for it. But something like Trials, I think this helmet actually wouldn't be too bad, just due to the fact with how slow things are, right? Especially with Trials and Stasis, and now people are playing extremely slow with 120s. One thing Bungie could do, right? Literally, they don't even have to add it to the game, really. It's already in the game with the helmet. So the arc damage buff, make it to where you do you do extra arc damage in PvP. So that way you don't waste 10 seconds with absolutely nothing. I do not think that this dodge should be up on a normal 11-second cooldown. I think that would be actually quite broken. I do agree with the way Bungie balanced it, but I don't agree with the fact that you get absolutely nothing for those 21 seconds you're waiting for your cooldown, right? You should have the arc damage buff, at least for those 11 seconds, or that 10 seconds it tells you, right? Because it just feels really useless, and it's kind of frustrating because you don't get the same penalty on Wormhusk or Dragon Shadow or anything. So it just that's the one thing that's pushing me away from this exotic, is just it feels like half of it isn't working essentially, and that's not something that any exotic. I don't think so, at least for the most part. Like something like even some random exotic like the double dodge. The 6 Coyote, I think it is. You get 2 dodges. There's no downside to it, right? You get 2 dodges and it's that normal cooldown, right? So it is pretty unfortunate. This is how the way it has to work in PvP. I do think the arc damage could have been brought into PvP without it being too strong. Obviously, nothing super crazy or anything. Don't let frickin' like 140s 2-tap to the head or something, but maybe like a 5% damage increase, even something as small as that, like would make it feel somewhat more useful, at least in my eyes. I was actually just to upload this video, and then I realized there was one more perk I forgot to talk about, which was the fact that when you slow people, you do extra damage. Although that's how it's supposed to work, and I'm guessing it only works in PvE because it doesn't work in PvP anymore. This actually did work, but Bungie changed it. This perk was actually pretty good. Like, it made the helmet pretty useful when you didn't have your dodge up, right? There was another part that was pretty significant, but now the fact that you're not doing extra damage to slowed targets, again, you have an exotic on that's only working every 21 seconds, which is kind of a bummer. I know a fuck ton of you are going to disagree with me, so if you have your own opinions, let me know down in the comments down below. I hope you guys enjoyed the gameplay, at least. Maybe if you didn't agree with me, let me know, and I will see you guys in the next video tomorrow. Peace!